Hi, this is Derek with MostInterestingLife.com, and today's video is about how interesting people, they never accept average. The whole idea of being average to an interesting person, it's like death. It is a ridiculous, unacceptable reality to have. Because average people, they accept average things, they put in an average effort, and interesting people, they want excellence in their life. They want to achieve great things. They want to have great things in their life, great experiences. And average people, they don't do this. Now, the average person in the United States watches hours of television a day. This is how they spend a lot of their time. They spend it the least productive ways possible. The average person in the US doesn't leave the country ever. They don't learn languages. They barely read books. They rarely think about the future and goals and things that they want to achieve. The average person gets out of shape very quickly if they're ever in good shape in their life. As they age, their body breaks down very fast. They're not like one of those 80, 90-year-old people you see doing yoga their whole life and lifting weights. No, the average person slowly, they get a little hunchback. They get fat, they get out of shape, they're always complaining about their bones, how they hurt. They do as little physical work as possible. And that's what an average person does. The average person gets bossed around, they wait in lines, they get overcharged, they have very poor time management, and they have to ask somebody, oh, can I go to lunch now on a job? They have to ask and beg to see if they can go on a vacation when they want. The average person, they watch others doing as they please and passing them by, and they say, oh, wow, they must be lucky. They must be lucky to have freedom in their life. Oh, they make excuses of why people are doing better than them. Oh, they were born into it. Oh, if I was so-and-so, or if I had whatever, I would be like that too. No, you wouldn't. The average person wants to do as little as possible, doesn't want to reflect on things that matter. The average person accepts so little and is happy with the minimum. Just as long as they have their junk food and television, that's all they really need. They get taken advantage of, stepped on all the time. And why? Because they allow it. People allow in their lives what they're willing to put up with. And average people, they put up with a lot of junk because it is a lot of work for them to excel and get higher, and they don't want to do the work. If they have minimal comforts around and they have their sports or celebrity gossip or whatever, that's enough for them. They could buy a case of beer and they're more than fine. That's what the average person thinks. And that's how they act. There are 7 billion people in the world. And if you're average, that means there are billions of people doing better than you. Now, I talk about how you shouldn't compare yourself to others. And this is certainly true in that you should keep a focus on the great things you want to accomplish. But I'm definitely saying you don't want to see what the average person is doing and say, oh, that's okay because the average person is doing the same thing I'm doing. Statistics are always talking about the average person. The average person could run a mile this fast. The average person reads this many books a week. The average person makes this much money. And people say if they're in that average range, they feel good or they feel okay. Like, oh, at least I'm average. The interesting person does not want this. They realize how low of a bar that being average is. The average person does not work out. They don't work on goals. They don't even have goals. They don't even, oh, if you ask them, they have very vague things. Oh, I want to be happy, or, I mean, yes, you should want to be happy and value that, but their goals very vague. Oh, I would love to have a ton of money. But ask them how, if they have any plans to achieve their goals, their quote-unquote goals, because they're very vague to start with, and they don't really have a plan. They go, oh, maybe I'll start a business one day, or maybe this, maybe that. But someday never comes around, and this is the way that the average person thinks. I know this video is a little harsh in some ways, but if you're watching a video like this, it's because you want excellence in your life. You want to lead a rewarding and interesting life. You don't want to just settle and work a job where you have to work all these hours a week, making profits for somebody else, and having to beg for vacation time or say, oh, can I eat lunch now? And that's like a dog. The interesting person, this is not acceptable to them. you want more than just to watch TV, get fat sitting on a couch. The average person on vacation, they'll do something like they'll take a cruise where everything's taken care of, and again, they can be as lazy as possible, where everyone's speaking their own language, everything's taken care for them, like all their food, all their activities. It's a very safe, sterile environment. Or they'll go to some place like Florida or maybe California, or if they're feeling wild, they'll go to Las Vegas, or they'll go to a close by island that's really easy, all-inclusive type thing where everything is taken care of. That's their idea of a trip. They don't want to go to some foreign country where they speak a different language, they use a different currency, where everything is different. That would be too much for them. Where the food is all different, that would scare them. An interesting person loves all the interesting things. They love to be able to try new foods and struggle with a new language and navigate a transportation system. I remember being in Japan and trying to figure out the subway system and just trying to look at a map I had of Tokyo and look at the subway with it was all in the kanji lettering and trying to figure out, and I figured everything out. And it was such an interesting experience, but for an average person, they wouldn't believe it. They think that most countries are dangerous. They think most travel is way too dangerous to even do, and it's way outside their scope. The average person's bubble of thought is very tiny of of their thoughts that occur. They have the same average thoughts every day. An interesting person has a wide range of thoughts that they have, and they're always looking to expand and find new thoughts and introduce them. Sometimes you could talk to a real average person, or as an interest person, you're talking to an average person, and you could tell that just the things that you say to them, it doesn't even correlate in their mind. It's like it short circuits them, and they look at you with a confused look, like they can't believe that you're thinking in ways that are different from the average. It really is crazy in some ways how conditioned people's minds get. And this is acceptable for some people. It's acceptable for most people. And I guess we need gas pumpers. We need people to wait in line. We need people to do real low-wage jobs and low-level jobs and jobs where you don't have to think or do anything. And, there's a lot of good people doing jobs like this. But the world is like a pyramid, and you need people on the bottom, unfortunately. And there's no shortage of people to do that. But again, if you're watching a video like this, you probably look to read books, and you look to improve yourself, and you look to constantly find ways to enhance the level of your life. Just the thought of average just makes the interesting people absolutely sick. Because interesting people, they always want more. I talked about this. It's when you achieve something, you say, that's great. What's next? And average person just says, oh, I did the minimal I had to do. Now I could rest. Now I could sit on my TV and watch TV, sit on my couch. Interesting people, they want the best, and they always want better for themselves, for their friends and their family. And that's when they're truly happy, when they're engaged, when they're growing in something, when maybe they're helping people, or building their own wealth, building something, staying in shape, they're excelling in some sort of hobby or hobbies. That's what makes an interesting person excited. And that's the way that the human mind is really programmed, and that we're only really happy when we're growing. So that's why you have so many people in this world, in the country, that are on all these prescription drugs because they're depressed, and they don't even know why they're depressed. I mean, maybe because they're eating junk food and this and that, but it's because they're not engaged. They're not living a life that is passionate and engaged. And that's how the average person is. So an interesting person, they don't follow what the average people do. If they see average people doing something, instead of saying, okay, everyone else is doing it, they ask questions. They say, why are people waiting in a line? Why do people doing something like this? They're always asking questions and to see, is there a better way to do something? If they see some fad that everyone's doing, maybe they'll look into it. Maybe it's something that is cool and makes sense to do. Maybe not. But they also know that very few things are permanent. And they know that change comes. The average person hates any sort of change. It flips them out. You could see this if you're on Facebook, when Facebook or Instagram or any of those apps, they change one little thing, average people flipping out. They go, oh, no, why? I like the old way. And then a couple months later, they settle in, and then they say, the change isn't too bad. But interesting people, they welcome change. They know that change is necessary for constant growth, they were saying before. So interesting people, they set a really high bar, whereas average people, they set the bar as low as possible, the lowest bar that they could get away with. They like to sleep, they like to watch TV, they like to eat junk food, they like to do as little physical work as possible. That's what they like to do. History is not written by average people. History is written by excellent people, the few excellent people that stand out from all the rest of the average people. So, in your own life, think of all the ways that you're accepting average, because sometimes it can be sneaky. Sometimes you could be out of shape, or you could be not making enough money, or you could be just not having the right types of friends or relationships or romantic relationships, because you're setting a bar lower than you should, because maybe you're saying, oh, I'm doing better than Sam or Kelly down the street, but you're setting the bar too low. They say that people make as much money as their five best friends around them. They're usually an average of their 5 friends that they hang around with the most. I mean, if your mind is focused on average, your life will be average. If your mind is focused on excellence and always looking higher, there's a really good chance that that's how your life will be. So, I know this is kind of a harsh video in some ways. Guess I'm sorry for that a little bit, but it needs to be said, especially if you want to live an interesting life. So if you like this video, please give it a like, thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe. Go to my site, mostinterestinglife.com, and until next time, don't accept an average life and stay interesting.